Hi, my name is Mateo Chavez Lewis, and welcome back to
build myself a show.
Here on To Build a Show, we go through the structure of musicals. And all of the most successful musicals follow this kind of template that I'm breaking down, taking most of it from Jack Viertel's amazing book, The Secret Life of the American Musical. If you haven't read that book, you absolutely should. It's a fantastic read. And so this episode is about the central relationship in a musical. Usually this is introduced right after the I Want number. So we have the opening number, which sets up the world, and then the I Want number, which sets up the protagonist within the world, and then the relationship number, which Jack Viertel calls the Conditional Love Song. Now, opening numbers and I Want numbers are a little bit more staples. Almost every musical has one of these, but the Conditional Love Song or the relationship number is not as set in stone. Some musicals don't use one, some musicals save it until much later in the show. But the idea is that sometime in, these first 20, 30 minutes of your show, you've got to set up what the central relationship is between the protagonist and the person they're in relation to. Now, in Golden Age Broadway, the central relationship was always, or almost always, a romantic one. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl. And because the central question of the show was, are they going to end up together? It was really important to set up that relationship early on. But it was also really important to show why they weren't already together. Because if they were already together, then there would be no show. There would have to be an obstacle to them being together. And usually that was, their fundamental differences as people. And so this number served the purpose in the Golden Age of setting up the fundamental difference between the two characters. And it gets its name, the Conditional Love Song, which Jack Viertel, I think that's his term. I've never heard that used anywhere else. But that gets its name from Carousel. Now, Carousel is kind of a outdated musical, and it kind of glorifies spousal abuse a little bit. But it was extremely popular when it came out in the 50s. And in Act 1, Scene 2, there's a song called If I Loved You. And it's the two characters kind of dancing around each other, flirting with each other, Julie Jordan and Billy Bigelow.
If I loved you, time and again I would try to say.
We've already introduced the world and the protagonist. And in Carousel, that's done in a bit of an unconventional way, which is like the big ballet number that opens the show. And now we're introducing this relationship. We're introducing these two people who are very fundamentally different, and we know that we're going to follow them throughout the show and follow the way that they affect each other. The joke is that they're singing If I Loved You, they're flirting, they're not putting all their cards out on the table, but we, the audience, we know that they are falling in love while they're singing If I Loved You, this is what I would do. How do they know? Well, because they're falling in love. And so we know that as the audience, and we get a real kick out of that dramatic irony. Another example from the Golden Age is in Guys and Dolls, the central relationship between Sky Masterson and Sarah Brown. They both sing about what their ideal person for them to be in a relationship with would look like. And for both of those people, that ideal image of the one true love for them that they've got in their mind does not look like each other. Like Sarah's idea of a perfect man for her is not a gambler. And I'm sure Sky's isn't like an uptight religious woman. So they sing,
I know when my love comes along.
Again, the dramatic irony, their love just did come along. Their love just walked in the room and they don't know it. So both of these examples, If I Loved You and I'll Know, do a really good job of setting up this romantic relationship that's going to happen down the road, but can't happen yet. Both characters have to change in order for this to work. And in Guys and Dolls, because it's a comedy, those characters do change in the way that they need to be with each other, and they both grow in the right ways and end up very happy together. And in Carousel, they aren't able to conquer those flaws that they have inside themselves, and they aren't able to make a happy life together. But that's the journey that we follow throughout the show, is this relationship between the protagonist, either Sky Masterson or Julie Jordan, and then their relationship to their romantic partner, who throughout the course of the show, they learn to fall in love with, they learn how to be with. Again, if it was super easy, if they walked in and said, I love you, then there would be no show, because the whole show in the Golden Age is getting these two people to fall in love. Golden Age, by the way, is a term that refers to musicals from the 1940s to the 1960s. It's called the Golden Age of Broadway because Broadway itself was very, very popular, and a lot of people paid a lot of money for theater shows, and Broadway songs made it into pop charts. You know, Frank Sinatra would cover every Broadway tune. It's not called the Golden Age because it was like this beautiful age of acceptance. I just want to throw that out there. There was a lot of racism and sexism on Broadway in those times. But when I say Golden Age, I just mean this period of Broadway where Broadway was very, very popular, and there were all of these huge romantic musicals with big swelling scores. I happen to like the time we're living in now a lot better. Now, the central relationship in the show is rarely a romantic one. It's often, we get like a bromance story, you know? We get Book of Mormon, where it's Elder Price and Elder Cunningham. Then we also have Wicked, which is a textbook example of a conditional love song. These two characters singing about how much they hate each other, but we know they're gonna end up falling in love, or in this case, being best friends. What is this feeling so sudden and new? I felt the moment I laid eyes on you. Loathing, unadulterated loathing, for your face, your voice, your clothing. Let's just say I loathe it all. This sets up the central relationship. Again, they start off hating each other, they become friends, they learn from each other, they grow, they change. That's basically what it is, setting up where these people start in this relationship so that it's very, very clear by the end how they've affected each other. And then at the end, in Wicked, they literally sing a song about how they've affected each other. More recently, the relationship number has started evolving a little bit more because the relationships that Broadway shows are exploring and musicals in general are exploring have started to become a little bit more complicated. For example, in Hamilton, the central relationship is between Hamilton and Burr. But in Hamilton, the I Want song, My Shot, features this conversation between Hamilton and Burr, and the rapped scene beforehand, which is called Aaron Burr, Sir, on the cast album, where Burr is like, stop talking, you're gonna get shot, don't talk so loud. And Hamilton is like, no, but look what we've got, look at all these awesome people we've got to do something with this. That sets up the relationship. Burr is cool, calm, collected, doesn't put all his eggs in one basket, doesn't commit too quickly to anything. And that ends up being his downfall. Whereas Hamilton is super ambitious, go, get him, acts quickly, doesn't think before he speaks, and that ends up being his downfall as well. So it sets up the fundamental differences between these two people and asks us, are these characters going to be able to reconcile their differences? And obviously in Hamilton, though they teach each other a lot and they learn a lot from each other, they obviously, spoiler alert, don't end up reconciling those differences, and one of them shoots the other one. A really interesting example is Dear Evan Hansen, because we have the opening number, Anybody Have a Map? And then we obviously have the I Want number. But then, For Forever comes after the I Want number, and it's another solo for Evan. And some people might argue this is like a second I Want number, which there's an argument for that, because there's this general want. Every character has a general want and then a specific want within the world of the show. Something they need in order for their spirit to be fulfilled, and a tangible object that represents that to them or that they think will give them that feeling of fulfillment. So for example, like, oh, I want to be loved, or I want fame, or I want excitement. And then the specific want becomes, I want this job, I want this prize, I want to marry this girl. And so you could argue that, like, For Forever is a second I Want number for Evan. He starts off singing Waving Through a Window, I want to be noticed, I want to be seen. And then For Forever becomes, I want to participate in this family's grief. But I think actually it only works because For Forever also sets up the central relationship in the show, which is Evan's relationship to the Murphy family. And it does that because even though Evan is singing the whole time, we see how much what he's singing is affecting the Murphy family. And so we see, oh, these people, there's this fundamental difference that they think he's telling the truth and he knows he's lying. And they're really going to teach each other a lot and they're going to learn a lot from each other, but ultimately, are they going to be able to reconcile those differences? So there you have it. After you've introduced the world of the show and the protagonist, you've also, in that same introductory section to your musical, you've got to introduce what the central relationship is. Two characters who have very different viewpoints and are going to learn from each other and teach each other things, and maybe they're going to be able to reconcile their differences and maybe they're not. The more different you can make these two characters, the more interesting your musical is going to be. Hamilton and Burr. Lin-Manuel Miranda, what he did so brilliantly was he took these two historical figures and he really exaggerated the personality traits that these historical figures actually had in order to make them even more opposed to each other than they were in real life, because it's a musical. They didn't rap, and they also weren't as dramatically different. But in order to make the musical really, really interesting, he really amps up Burr's hesitation, and Burr sings a song about that later in the show. And he really amps up Hamilton's ambition and his impulsiveness. Same with Elphaba and Glinda. You have Elphaba, who's like an outcast and is judged based on what she looks like and never feels like she's fit into society. And then you have Glinda, who's the queen bee and is in charge of the society. The more different you can make these two characters, the more interesting it is. And that's what this number does. It can be a solo, it can be a duet, or it doesn't even have to be a musical number. Sometimes it's just a scene or just a piece of another musical number. But no matter what, in these first 20-30 minutes of your musical, you have to set up this central relationship, and it has to be a juicy one full of conflict. Otherwise, why bother writing a musical about it if it's not that interesting? If one person comes around and says, I believe that money is the key to happiness, and someone else comes around and says, I also believe that. Good for us. We agree on something. That's not a very interesting musical. But if someone says, I believe money is the key to happiness, and you have another character come out and be like, actually no, family is the key to happiness. Oh, well now we've got a conflict. Now what's going to happen? Now we've got something to sing about for 2.5 hours. Anyway, so that's a little bit about how to set up the relationships in your musical. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe, because we've got more to build a show coming out. There's a whole bunch more to talk about in the structure of a musical. And I also do other videos every Saturday. And if you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider donating to the channel to support me. No amount is too small, but if you donate $5 or more, you'll get a shout out in a future video. And if you donate $50 or more, you can pick what song I analyze on Music Theater Theory next. So if you've always wanted to get your favorite song analyzed, now's the time to do that. You can donate at the link in the description. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me. You're all amazing. Go out into the world and keep singing. Once again, I'm Mateo Chavez Lewis, and this has been...